Well, for more on the situation in Venezuela, I'm joined now by Benjamin Gedan, former South America Director for the National Security Council, who's now at the Wilson Center. Thanks very much for joining me. This is pretty provocative stuff. Just how big a risk is Juan Guaido taking by returning home?
It was a courageous decision for Juan Guaido to return to Venezuela, but I think he had no choice. I mean, to be an effective opposition figure in Venezuela, you have to be in the country. I think we focus a great deal on the international aspects of this crisis, but the real action takes place at home.
So what does Maduro do now? What are the choices he has?
I think ultimately he would like to neutralize this new opposition figure, as he's done dismantling the Venezuelan democracy and imprisoning or exiling other opposition figures. But right now his hold on power is quite fragile, and so he's operating with unusual caution.
You say quite fragile, but it hasn't collapsed. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, I think for now he controls the entire territory and he controls the security services and the military. It's fragile because the economy is collapsing. He suffers from hyperinflation, the risk of defections from senior officials in the military, scarcity of basic goods. So the reality is, I think we have a false impression of how strongly he controls the country.
So what will it take? Because, as you say, a false impression, it sounds as if a lot of people underestimated his staying power.
Yeah, I mean, in the short term, I think the idea that the international community could force him to resign was probably unrealistic. He has every motivation in the world to stay. He faces, if he leaves, the really real possibility of prosecution, and those around him face a very grim future. That said, his ability to contain the opposition, I think, has limits.
As far as the opposition is concerned, how long can Mr. Guaido maintain this momentum if there are no tangible results, such as the aid getting through?
I think the reality is that sanctions take time, and absent some kind of dramatic intervention, such as the military intervention that has been threatened by the Trump administration, anything the international community does is going to need time to take an effect, including the oil boycott that the United States has imposed on Venezuela, which I think will have grave effects in Venezuela, both worsening the humanitarian conditions, but also tightening the financial noose around Nicolas Maduro. But again, I think it takes time, and I think to maintain momentum, what he needs is a constant mobilization of the Venezuelan people.
How far do you think the United States is prepared to go to support him?
I think as of now it has taken basically all the tools it can use and applied them to this crisis other than an invasion. I think what is next for the United States, again, absent a military intervention, is to have other major players globally pursue similar sanctions.
And meanwhile, of course, the humanitarian crisis continues. What are the options as far as getting aid through?
As the government of Venezuela denies the existence of the humanitarian crisis and physically shuts its borders to aid, it becomes very difficult to do so. I think there may be ways in a low-profile fashion to partner with aid agencies operating in an apolitical fashion inside Venezuela. But the sad reality is that despite the urgency of the humanitarian crisis, the best most countries can do is support Venezuelans who have left. More than 3 million already, maybe 5 million by the end of the year.
And very briefly, if you were a betting man, how long do you think this crisis is going to continue?
I think the crisis can grind on for weeks, it can grind on for months. But again, there are very few examples worldwide where any leader has survived the kind of economic catastrophe that Maduro has brought upon his own country. And I don't think this will be a counterexample.
Benjamin Gedan, thanks very much indeed for joining me.
Thank you.